I remember that morning as if it happened yesterday. The drizzle was soft against my windshield, a light tapping that made the city feel quiet and reflective. I had a basket of food in the passenger seat, a little gift for my daughter-in-law Denise, sweet potato casserole, fresh cornbread muffins, and a small jar of her favorite peach preserves. I'd stayed up late cooking, imagining the smile on her face when she saw it. She'd just been promoted from secretary to CEO at Larkson and Tate Industries. A black woman running a company like that. Baby, I was proud, like she was my own blood achieving something I had always hoped for her. And Marcus, my son, he had been beside himself with pride. He'd been gone nearly 3 weeks, tied up with business in Chicago. Said he'd be back soon, but that deal couldn't wait. I wanted to show Denise some love. Let her know that her family was rooting for her even while Marcus was away. If you're listening now, don't go nowhere. What I'm about to tell you, it ain't just gossip or heartache. It's a warning, a reminder that sometimes the folks smiling beside you ain't the ones standing with you. So lean in close, baby. You need to hear this. I parked outside the tall glass building where she worked, the one with marble floors and a lobby that smelled faintly of lemon polish. I clutched my basket, my chest fluttering with pride. The security guard at the entrance gave me a polite nod. "Morning, ma'am," he said. "Good morning, baby. I'm here to see Denise Tate. She's the new CEO." He squinted at me, tilting his head. "Ah, the CEO. You must be her mother-in-law, huh?" I smiled warmly. "Yes, that's right. Marcus's mama." Then he said something that made my heart skip. "That's funny," he said softly. "I see her mother-in-law around here a lot, even before she got promoted. There's someone comes by pretty often." My smile froze. Another mother-in-law. How could that be? Marcus only had one mama, and that was me. I laughed nervously. "Baby, I think you got me mixed up." He gave a polite shrug, still smiling. "Maybe so, ma'am. My mistake." I tried to shake it off and stepped into the lobby. The receptionist smiled at me as I mentioned Denise's name. "Oh, Mrs. Tate. She's in a meeting. Might be a while." "That's all right, baby," I said. "I'll wait outside. Just dropping off some lunch." Outside, the drizzle fell soft and steady. Cars lined the curb, drivers opening doors for executives as they came and went. Then I saw her. Denise stepped out through the glass doors, dressed sharp in a cream-colored suit. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement. But it wasn't her professional glow that stopped me. It was the man walking beside her, tall, confident, familiar in a way that shouldn't have been familiar. And he wasn't my son. I froze. The basket nearly slipped from my hands. My chest went tight, like all the air had been pulled clean out of the world. That laugh, Lord. I knew that laugh. Used to echo through my kitchen when Marcus told his corny jokes. But hearing it now, aimed at another man, it didn't sound sweet no more. They were talking close, leaning toward each other, and she reached for his arm. My mind raced. Marcus was supposed to be in Chicago. This man could not be him. The guard from earlier glanced my way and nodded toward them. "That's her right there," he said softly. "The CEO and her husband. They leave together just about every afternoon." I turned slowly, trying to make sense of what he said. "Her husband?" I repeated, my throat dry. "Yes, ma'am. Seems like they're close." I felt my knees weaken. My hands gripped the basket like it was the only thing keeping me upright. The drizzle soaked my coat, but I barely noticed. I couldn't take my eyes off them as the man helped Denise into a sleek black sedan, his hand brushing hers in that familiar, intimate way. My stomach turned. Every memory I had of Denise with Marcus replayed in my head, their smiles, their laughs, their small acts of love. None of it made sense anymore. Who was he? Why was he with her? And why did everyone seem to believe this man was her husband? I stood there, frozen, soaked, my heart pounding in a rhythm I couldn't control. And in that moment, I realized something I had always known deep down. When a mother's gut tells her something's wrong, she had better listen. Because what I was about to discover was going to change everything I thought I knew about my family. The drive home that morning felt longer than it should have. The drizzle had turned steady, pattering against my windshield, and I sat in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. The basket of food beside me, the sweet potato casserole, cornbread muffins, the little jar of peach preserves sat untouched. I could hardly look at it. What had felt like love and pride now weighed heavy, almost bitter, in my hands. Denise, my daughter-in-law, had just stepped into the world of CEOs. From secretary to running a company that size, my pride swelled just thinking about it. But the man I had seen beside her, he wasn't Marcus. My boy was away in Chicago on business, and yet there they were, walking together like they shared a lifetime of intimacy I'd never seen. I pulled into the driveway. The house quiet, empty without Marcus' laughter filling the rooms. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the tension settle across my shoulders. But it didn't go away. Every thought bounced back louder than the last. Who was that man? Why was she laughing like that? Why did everyone seem to accept him as her husband? Inside, my sister Gloria was in the kitchen, sipping her coffee like the world wasn't about to fall apart. She gave me a look that said she already knew something was wrong. "You look like the world done fell on you, Loretta," she said. I sank into the chair across from her, my chest still tight. "Gloria, I saw something I cannot unsee." Her brow furrowed. "Child, slow down. Breathe. Tell me what's going on." I shook my head, trying to stop the trembling in my hands. It was Denise, at her office, leaving the building. She wasn't with Marcus, not even close. The man beside her, I've never seen him before. "Gloria, it wasn't my son." Gloria reached across the table, her hand warm against mine. "All right now, are you sure?" "I'm sure," I whispered. Every laugh, every glance, every touch. "It wasn't Marcus. He's supposed to be in Chicago. That man, he isn't him." She leaned back, frowning. "Loretta, sometimes people fool you. Sometimes the truth is messier than it looks. You need to be careful. Don't jump to action until you know." I nodded, but my stomach felt like it had turned inside out. Gloria was right. I couldn't just storm in and make accusations. I had to see it clearly. I had to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made a move. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. I tried to busy myself with household chores, but every little sound made me jump: the hum of a passing car, the bark of a neighbor's dog. My mind kept returning to Denise. That smile, that laugh, the way she touched him so casually, that comfort she displayed. It cut me deeper than I could explain. By evening, I had made up my mind. I couldn't just sit and wait. Part of me wanted to crawl into bed and pretend I'd seen nothing. But another part, stubborn, mother strong, wouldn't allow me to rest. I had to see it again. I needed to know the full story. I prepared myself carefully. Neutral clothes. Nothing that would catch Denise's attention if I walked into the building again. I took my small umbrella and my coat, planning to return the next day under the guise of delivering lunch or company paperwork. I needed to observe, quietly, and figure out who this man really was and what he meant to her. Later that night, I sat by the window, staring out at the rain-soaked streets of Atlanta. The city lights shimmered in the puddles, distorted reflections of the world outside, just like the distorted reflection of my family inside my heart. Pride, fear, heartbreak, anger, they all twisted together in one heavy knot in my chest. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me feared that ignoring it would be a mistake. Finally, I tapped. The message was short. "You're not wrong about her." My hands trembled. My throat went dry. Whoever sent that message knew what I'd seen. And if they were watching her, maybe they were watching me too. I sat there, staring at the screen. The rain pounding against the glass louder than ever. The realization hit me in waves. This was bigger than a glance or a misunderstanding. Someone else knew. Someone else had seen it. And if they were involved, I could no longer treat this as a private matter. I let the thoughts sink in. Part of me feared what I would uncover if I kept digging. Another part, the part that had made me a mother and a grandmother. The part that had faced life's cruelties and survived, knew I had no choice. I had to see it through. Because when betrayal walks so close to the ones you love, you cannot afford to blink. You have to see everything. And I was about to see. The next morning, I woke before the city stirred. Streets were slick with leftover rain, and the air smelled faintly of wet pavement, crisp and sharp. My heart, though, baby, my heart felt heavy and restless. I hadn't slept a wink. Every detail from yesterday, the man beside Denise, the way she laughed at him, played over and over in my mind. I dressed quietly in neutral clothes. Soft beige slacks, a plain blouse, nothing flashy. I tucked my hair into a low bun and pulled my coat tight around me, carrying the basket more for cover than purpose. This wasn't about delivering food anymore. It was about truth. I needed to see what was real and what was lie. Driving toward the office, I tried to calm myself, whispering over and over, "Patience, Loretta. Don't jump yet." Gloria's words rang in my ears. "Don't act until you know." But the stubborn mother-strong part of me would not sit idle. I had to see for myself. I parked a block away, taking a moment to let my eyes adjust. The glass doors reflected the morning sun, the office inside alive with the pulse of business. And there she was, Denise Tate, walking with the confidence of someone who'd climbed from secretary to CEO in a few short years. Sharp suit, perfect posture, serene smile. But my eyes were on him, the man from yesterday. He was leaning casually against the side, waiting. She caught sight of him and smiled, easy, comfortable, familiar. My chest tightened. How could she act like this? Like my Marcus wasn't miles away, trusting her. I sat on a bench across the street, pretending to read a magazine I hadn't opened. Every glance Denise cast my way made my heart skip. Every time he leaned close, whispered, or brushed her hand, I felt a cold pang in my chest. If she sees me, what then? I wondered, clenching my hands into fists beneath the magazine. By mid-morning, the cracks began to show. Denise's assistant, carrying a stack of papers, approached, and Denise's hand brushed against the man's. They shared a quiet laugh. It was the kind of laugh that didn't belong in a professional hallway. It was intimate, private, shared only between them. My stomach turned. I noticed Karen Jenkins, an old colleague from Denise's secretary days, near the entrance. I recognized her immediately. She had been kind to Marcus and me in the past. When she spotted me, she gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. My pulse quickened. That nod wasn't casual, it was a message. Someone inside knew. Someone who could confirm what I suspected. Every moment I stayed there, I felt the risk more sharply. Every time Denise glanced toward the street, my breath caught. If our eyes met, I'd have to explain why I was there, and I wasn't ready for that. But I couldn't leave. I needed to see. I needed proof. Around noon, Denise left the building, not toward the parking lot but down a side corridor, and he followed. Steps matched. I held my breath, watching as they disappeared from view. I realized then, watching them, that observation alone wasn't enough. I needed details. Names, faces, evidence of their closeness. I started noting everyone who entered and exited the building. Every gesture, every word overheard in passing, I stored in my mind. And Karen? She lingered near the entrance, her expression subtle, thoughtful. There was a hint of sympathy, a shadow of warning. I knew she was watching me as much as I was watching Denise. That one nod had weight, and it made my chest tighten with anticipation. Later, I followed at a discreet distance when they emerged from a side entrance, walking arm in arm, laughing quietly. I stayed in the shadows, unseen. My hands shook slightly, my heart thumping like a drum. I replayed every laugh, every glance, every step in my mind. Each one confirmed what I feared. Denise had secrets, and Marcus was miles away, trusting her completely. When they entered a boutique a few blocks away, I finally let out a slow breath. I had seen enough for now, enough to know I wasn't imagining things. Proof was there, silent and undeniable. My hands gripped the basket tightly. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet, but I knew it was coming. Driving home, I replayed the day over and over. My thoughts bounced between fear for my son, anger at the betrayal, and a growing plan of action. And as the rain tapped lightly against the windshield, a cold question lingered in my mind. How deep does this go? That night, I sat alone by the window, watching the wet streets shimmer under the city lights. My chest tightened with every memory of the day. I thought of Marcus, my boy, miles away, trusting completely. How long had she been fooling him? How long would it continue if I didn't act carefully? But I was ready, not to strike, not yet, but to see, to gather, to understand. Because sometimes, baby, the people closest to you are the ones who can hurt you the deepest. And if that hurt is coming, you better be ready to know it before it's too late. The morning air was crisp, and for once, the sun broke through the clouds, scattering golden light across the streets of Atlanta. But for me, baby, there was no warmth that day. Every ray seemed to highlight the truth I didn't want to see. The closer I got to Denise's office, the tighter my chest felt. My mother's strong heart knew I was walking into something dangerous, something that could break more than pride. It could shatter the trust of my entire family. I parked a little further than usual, careful to remain unseen, and approached the building on foot. Walking along the polished sidewalks, I watched the revolving glass doors, counting the faces, noting the rhythms of the office workers. Denise's new position as CEO didn't change her habits. There was still that faint nervous energy she carried, the subtle way she glanced over her shoulder when she spoke to people, the polite but slightly strained smiles she offered. Something about it seemed rehearsed, and my mother's instinct screamed, "There's more here than she lets on." I found a small cafe across the street, claiming a table near the window. From there, I could see Denise as she moved through the office, effortlessly commanding her assistants, walking with the ease of someone in control. And there he was again, the man from the previous days. I could feel my pulse in my throat just seeing him. He wasn't staff, not officially, but he moved through the space with an air of belonging. confidence that only comes when someone is expected and permitted to be there. As I sipped my coffee, trying to steady my nerves, I noticed a young intern following Denise closely. The kid's eyes darted nervously, like they were watching for something more than office politics. That's when I realized the people around Denise were afraid. Not just respectful, but cautious. Their movements, the little nods, the whispered words in hallways, it all painted a picture of someone who ruled not with warmth, but with a subtle, tight grip. And then the first crack appeared. Denise called for the man I was watching, and they disappeared into a side office. I leaned forward, straining to see past the tinted glass. A brief flash of laughter, soft and intimate, drifted into the hallway. My chest tightened. That laugh again, it was different when I heard it like this. Not the kind of leadership laugh you expect from a CEO. No, baby. It was the private, personal kind of laugh that belongs in a living room, not a corner office with the city at your feet. I realized then how carefully she had built this image. To Marcus, she was perfect. To the world, she was the rising star, the CEO who had climbed from secretary to leader. But in the corners, behind closed doors, there was a side of her Marcus would never see, never suspect. And that man, he was part of it, part of the truth she hid. My thoughts were interrupted by a familiar figure approaching the cafe. Karen Jenkins. She slid into the seat across from me without a word. I wasn't sure if I should speak or stay silent, but the look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She had been watching too, and she knew the truth. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she asked softly, her voice a whisper like she didn't want anyone else to hear. I nodded, fingers tightening around my cup. "Every bit. She's changed, but not in ways Marcus would expect. And that man, he's not who he says he is. Or at least, not supposed to be there." Karen sighed, glancing toward the office building. "It's worse than you think. Denise, she's clever. She knows how to cover her tracks. People like her, they don't make mistakes often. But you saw her today. You know the cracks are starting to show." I leaned closer, my voice barely above a whisper. "Cracks? You mean she's been fooling him all along?" Karen's eyes softened, filled with a mix of sympathy and warning. "Not just fooling. She's manipulating. Everything is controlled, planned. She knows exactly what Marcus believes, exactly what the world sees. But when she thinks no one is looking, she's someone else entirely." The words sank deep, heavier than I could have imagined. My hands shook slightly, my mother heart racing. The betrayal wasn't just in that moment outside the office. It had been building for months, maybe years, hidden behind promotions, smiles, and ambition. And now, knowing the truth, I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. I glanced back at the office, watching Denise emerge from the side door. She moved with precision, hand on the man's arm in a gesture that looked casual, almost accidental. But baby, I knew better. That gesture wasn't casual. It was ownership. Familiarity, something personal that didn't belong in an office setting. I felt a wave of silent fury, not just for Marcus, but for myself, for every instinct I had ignored, every subtle sign I had brushed off. Denise's carefully constructed life had hidden a dark, intimate reality, and I had glimpsed it. Just a glimpse, but enough to know. If Marcus saw it, he would be shattered. Karen placed her hand lightly on mine. "You have to be careful," she said. "Don't let her see you watching too closely. She's smart. She'll know. And if she does..." Her words hung in the air, a warning without needing completion. I nodded, swallowing hard. The game had changed. Observation alone wouldn't be enough. I needed to act, to prepare, to understand fully what I was up against. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture was ugly, baby. Ugly and dangerous. For the rest of the afternoon, I stayed in the shadows, watching. Every glance Denise gave the man, every laugh, every touch I could glimpse, it all told the same story. A story Marcus did not know, could not imagine. And as the day drew to a close, I felt a creeping certainty. The confrontation was coming. And when it did, there would be no turning back. Because some truths, baby, no matter how carefully hidden, will claw their way into the light. And when that happens, you either face it, or it consumes everything you thought you knew. That morning, I woke feeling a weight in my chest I couldn't shake. Even the sunlight streaming through my kitchen window didn't bring relief. It was quiet, too quiet. Marcus had called late last night from Chicago, saying he'd be home the next day. I could hear the excitement in his voice, the longing to see Denise and return to normalcy. My stomach twisted. Normalcy? After what I had seen? I dressed quickly, choosing my usual neutral slacks and blouse. No jewelry, no flashy colors. This wasn't about appearances anymore. This was about clarity, about walking into the truth head first. I tucked my hair into a low bun and slipped out the door with the basket of food I had prepared for Marcus' welcome home dinner. Only this time, it wasn't just food, it was my armor, my excuse, my cover. Driving toward her office, my mind replayed the previous days, the way she moved with him, the laughs shared in private, the glances that lingered too long. And now, baby, today would be different. I wasn't just watching anymore. Today, I had a plan. I arrived early, parking a block away as usual. The office building loomed over me, glass and steel reflecting the morning sun. Denise was already there, walking toward the entrance. She looked radiant, confident, CEO energy in full force. But my eyes were on him. He was waiting outside, leaning casually against the wall. The air between them felt charged, electric with intimacy I hadn't seen in a professional setting before. I moved to a discreet spot across the street, pretending to read a magazine. My hands trembled slightly, gripping the basket. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. Observe first. Wait. Know everything before acting, and then it happened. Denise exited the building, briefcase in hand, but instead of heading toward the parking lot, she moved down the side corridor. He followed, just behind her. They entered the small alley behind the building, out of view from the main street. My pulse raced. I considered going after them, confronting them right there, but no. I had to wait, had to see fully what was unfolding. Minutes later, they emerged, laughing quietly, sharing whispered words. And then I saw it. My heart nearly stopped. He leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and she leaned in closer than what was acceptable between colleagues. It was intimate, too intimate, and in that moment, baby, all the suspicions I had been carrying since the first glance yesterday confirmed themselves. Denise was betraying my son. I felt my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped the basket. My chest tightened, every breath shallow. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. This was betrayal, pure and unfiltered. Marcus' wife, the woman he trusted, laughing and touching another man like he didn't exist, like he was just a name she mentioned in passing. Miles away, Karen Jenkins appeared suddenly, stepping lightly onto the street beside me. I hadn't noticed her approach. She whispered, her voice low but sharp, "You're not wrong about her." I swallowed hard. "It's worse than I thought," I admitted, my voice trembling. "Every look, every touch, it's all wrong. And Marcus, he doesn't know. He can't know yet. Not like this. Karen nodded. I've seen it before, she said, her gaze fixed on Denise and the man who wasn't Marcus. Some people are masters at hiding their secrets. She's clever. But today, you saw the truth. We watched silently as Denise guided him toward a nearby cafe, slipping inside without a glance back. My mother heart felt like it had been ripped from my chest. The betrayal wasn't subtle. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate, calculated, and cruel. I felt a wave of anger, deep and simmering. This wasn't just about a touch, a laugh, or a private word. This was about deception, about the woman Marcus had chosen, the woman he loved, turning toward another man while he was gone. It was a knife to the heart, and it had been hidden under the guise of ambition, career, and smiles. I stepped back from the window, gripping the basket tighter. My mind raced with plans, with strategies, with questions. How long had this been happening? How long has she been playing Marcus? And worse, has anyone else known? Who else has seen? Karen placed a hand lightly on my arm. Don't act out of anger, Loretta. Not yet. Wait. Gather what you can. Document it. Because when Marcus comes home, he needs proof. Not just words. Proof. Her voice grounded me, and I realized she was right. I had to be careful. Acting impulsively would ruin everything. The betrayal was raw, but patience and planning would ensure justice. I spent the next hours discreetly following Denise, noting every move, every interaction. She was meticulous, careful not to be seen by her staff. But the intimacy with this man was impossible to hide if you looked closely enough. They went to lunch at a quiet bistro, whispering, laughing too much like a couple in love, too little like business associates. As I observed, I felt a mix of rage and sorrow. My son trusted her. My son loved her. And she didn't care. Not really. Or maybe she cared only for herself and her secrets. Either way, it was a betrayal that cut deep, one that couldn't be ignored or forgiven easily. By late afternoon, I returned home, exhausted but determined. I laid out my notes, every movement, every gesture, every moment that confirmed the truth. The first major betrayal had been revealed, and I could feel the magnitude of what lay ahead. This was no small misunderstanding. It was a carefully hidden affair that would destroy Marcus. If he learned the truth unprepared sitting in my kitchen, I closed my eyes and whispered a prayer. Not for Denise, not for the man she was with, but for Marcus, for my son, for the day when the truth would be revealed, and when justice, however harsh, would finally be served. Because, baby, betrayal like this doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. And when it finally comes to light, it leaves scars that run deep into the heart. And I was ready to make sure Marcus never faced this alone. That night, baby, I could not sleep. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes every thought echo like thunder. Marcus' absence hung heavy. Even though I had spoken to him that morning, his voice had carried warmth and trust, and it nearly broke me. Because while he trusted Denise, I had seen what she truly was. And the betrayal? It festered in me, like a fire that would not die. I sat at the kitchen table, the basket of untouched food still in front of me, and stared at the ceiling. Every laugh I had heard between Denise and that man, every lingering glance, played over and over in my mind. My hands were clenched into fists, nails biting into my palms. Rage didn't feel right, not at first. It was a quiet, simmering fire, silent but deadly, and it grew with every heartbeat. I thought about Marcus, my boy, miles away in Chicago. He trusted her completely. He believed in her, and she, that woman, that beautiful, ambitious woman he loved, had been playing him. My chest tightened, and a sharp ache went through my heart. How could someone you loved, someone you trusted, betray you so completely? I poured myself a glass of water and let it sit, untouched, as I tried to breathe through the anger. I prayed, softly, quietly, not the please bless me kind of prayer, but the kind that begged for patience, for clarity, for control. I knew if I acted now, if I let this rage consume me, it would ruin everything. I had to wait, observe, plan. But baby, that didn't stop the fire inside me. I remembered Denise as a girl, the secretary, sweet and eager to please, learning the ropes. How she had grown, ambitious and polished, climbing the ladder to CEO. And now, the woman she had become, so polished, so perfect, was hiding her true self. The mask of professionalism couldn't hide the intimate touches, the secret smiles, the betrayal that had been unfolding right under my son's nose. I paced the kitchen, fists still tight. Lord, how did she do this? I whispered aloud, my voice raw. How did she get so close, so trusted, and hide this from him? Every step echoed in the quiet room. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Rage, baby, silent but sharp, cutting through every other thought. I remembered what Karen had said, that Denise was clever, that she controlled every narrative, every perception, and I realized that to confront her, to protect Marcus, I would have to be smarter, colder even, not in a mean way, but in a way that gave me control. Because right now, I was burning inside. I needed strategy, not just emotion. I went to the living room and sat, my hands trembling slightly. I pulled out my phone and started jotting down every detail I had observed, every movement, every laugh, every intimate gesture. The more I wrote, the more my rage was channeled into focus. Not revenge yet, not confrontation. Observation, documentation, proof. Marcus would need facts, not my fury. Hours passed. The fire inside me had shifted from raw anger to a silent, burning clarity. I realized something important. The betrayal was not just about Denise. It was about trust, loyalty, and truth. And if I didn't handle this carefully, Marcus would bear the brunt of pain he didn't deserve. Finally, as the city lights outside shimmered in the wet streets, I allowed myself a slow exhale. My chest still ached, but the rage had transformed into a kind of readiness. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't blind. I had seen the cracks, and I would use them wisely. I sat back, letting the silence envelop me again. But this time, it wasn't oppressive. It was heavy with intention, with strategy, with the kind of silent rage that waits for the right moment to strike, not recklessly, but with precision. Because, baby, when someone betrays you this deeply, it isn't enough to scream, to cry, to lash out. You have to hold the storm inside. Let it sharpen you. Let it prepare you for the day the truth comes out. And that day, oh, it would come, and Marcus would never face it alone. I picked up the basket one last time, set it aside carefully, and whispered, tomorrow, I see it again. Tomorrow, I know more. And when I do, nothing will be left unturned. The night closed around me, heavy, silent, and yet filled with promise. The fire inside me was no longer raw. It was controlled. It was patient. It was waiting. The morning air in Atlanta was thick with humidity, but I barely noticed it. My mind was somewhere else entirely, running through every detail I had gathered over the past few days. The betrayal weighed on me like a physical presence, pressing against my chest. But now, baby, It wasn't just about shock or silent rage anymore. It was about action, about stepping into the arena and facing the truth head on. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing clothes that conveyed respect and authority: soft cream blouse, tailored slacks, pearls for weight and dignity. I wanted to look like a mother, yes, but also like someone who had every right to confront what needed confronting. The basket of food stayed behind this time. It wasn't an excuse. It was a memory of what I had started with. Today, I wasn't showing up to please or celebrate. Today, I was showing up to uncover and confront. Driving to the office, my hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. The streets passed by in a blur, my mind rehearsing every phrase, every question. I thought about how to approach Denise, how to make her understand that I wasn't there as a passive observer. I had to assert power, baby, not just as Marcus' mother, but as someone who saw everything and wouldn't let lies fester. I parked in my usual spot, careful to be discreet, but this time I didn't hide. I walked up to the entrance with purpose, each step measured. The guard recognized me immediately. "Good morning, ma'am. Here for your daughter-in-law again?" His tone held a hint of surprise, but also respect. He had probably noticed my visits before. "I need to speak with Denise," I said, my voice calm but firm. "It's important." He hesitated, then nodded, letting me pass without further questions. Inside, the lobby hummed with the usual activity: employees moving briskly, phones ringing, meetings being scheduled. I walked confidently to the elevator, pressing the button for the executive floor. The walls of the elevator reflected my own face, lined, determined, unwavering. I took a deep breath and reminded myself, this isn't personal. This is truth. When the doors opened, I saw her, Denise, radiant, poised, commanding the room like she owned it. But this time, baby, the room didn't intimidate me. I had seen her cracks. I had seen her betrayals, and I knew what I needed to say. "Loretta," she said, her smile practiced, almost to perfect. "What a surprise." "Yes, Denise, a surprise," I replied evenly. My eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. "We need to talk." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Talk about what?" I took a step closer, keeping my voice low but steady. "About the man you've been seeing. About the games, the deception. About Marcus, my son, who has no idea what's been happening while he's away." Her smile faltered for just a heartbeat. I saw the flicker of something behind her eyes: recognition, maybe even fear. But she masked it quickly, leaning back in her chair with that CEO composure that had fooled so many before me. "Loretta, I think you're mistaken," she said, her voice smooth. "Marcus knows, and even if he doesn't, this isn't your business." I shook my head, my voice rising just slightly with controlled fury. "It is my business when my son is being betrayed. I've seen everything, Denise. Every look, every laugh, every touch. And I'm not leaving until you explain yourself." For the first time, I saw her pause, not for words, but for strategy. She had always been meticulous, calculating, but she hadn't accounted for me stepping into the equation fully informed, fully aware. "You've been following me?" she asked, her tone a mix of accusation and disbelief. "I've been observing. I've been waiting, and I've seen the truth." I leaned slightly forward, lowering my voice so it was sharp and deliberate. "You can't manipulate everyone, Denise. Not when the mother-in-law knows the stakes. Not when the truth is staring right at you." Her composure wavered for a moment, just long enough for me to notice the micro expressions: the tightening of her jaw, the flicker in her eyes, the way her hand curled around the edge of her desk. This was the first real crack I had seen in her armor, baby, and I was going to exploit it, not with rage, but with precision. You're clever, I continued, voice softening but remaining firm. You've built an image, a life, a career that dazzles everyone, but you can't hide who you are from everyone. I know, Denise, and I will make sure Marcus knows too on my terms, in my time, with evidence he can't ignore. She straightened in her chair, regaining some of her CEO composure, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed her. You can't control him, she said, her voice quieter now. He'll make his own decisions. Maybe, I said slowly, but I can make sure he sees the truth. And when he does, he will know who has been loyal and who has been deceiving him. For a moment, we just stared at each other, two women, powerful in our own ways, locked in a battle of wills. She, trying to protect her carefully constructed facade. Me, armed with the knowledge of her betrayal and the unshakable love for my son. Finally, she spoke, voice tight, controlled. You think you're in charge here? You think seeing a few private moments gives you power over me? I don't need power over you, I said, calm but resolute. I need truth. And you, Denise, have a lot of explaining to do. Her lips pressed into a thin line. The air between us crackled with tension, unspoken threats, and silent challenges. It was the first time I saw her truly on edge, not because of Marcus, but because of me and baby. That moment, that electric, silent standoff told me everything I needed to know. Power had shifted, even if slightly. She could no longer assume she had control over the narrative. I had inserted myself fully, and the world she had built on deception had begun to tremble. I left her office without another word, my chest still tight but steady. The fire that had been rage in Chapter 6 had transformed into controlled determination. Marcus would know the truth soon, and when he did, I would be ready, because in the game of betrayal, baby, the first move had been mine, and from this moment forward, the power was no longer hers alone. I never forget the sound of the front door opening that afternoon. It was Marcus, my baby, finally back from Chicago. I had waited all day, pacing, sitting, standing, thinking, praying. My chest was tight, every nerve on edge, because I knew what had to happen next. The truth would not be sugar-coated. It would hit him like a bolt of lightning, sharp and unforgiving. Marcus walked in, tired but smiling, carrying his briefcase. "Mama," he said, dropping it by the door. "It's good to be home." His eyes were bright, oblivious to the storm I had been holding in my chest. I forced a small smile, keeping my voice calm. "Welcome home, baby. Sit down. We need to talk." He plopped onto the couch, exhausted but relaxed. "Talk? About what, Mama?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The basket of untouched food sat nearby. I ignored it. The time for food, for normalcy, was over. "About Denise," I said softly, letting my voice carry the weight of every observation, every moment I had witnessed. His brow furrowed. "What about her?" I handed him my phone, open to the notes, the photos I had taken, the detailed account of her betrayals. "I've seen everything, baby. Every look, every touch, every moment she tried to hide from you." Marcus froze. His fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled through the evidence. I watched him, my heart aching, my chest tight, knowing how hard this would hit him. I had prepared myself for his reaction, but nothing could truly prepare me for the mix of disbelief, shock, and anger that crossed his face. She's... "Mama, this can't be real," he whispered, voice cracking. I trusted her. I love her. I know, baby, I said, reaching out to touch his arm. I know. And I didn't want to believe it either. But it's real, and you deserve to know before it's too late. His eyes filled with tears, and he ran a hand through his hair. All this time, I can't. His words trailed off. He looked at me, searching, pleading. Why didn't I see it? Because she's clever, Marcus. She's been hiding it, pretending, building her image, her life around a lie. I've watched for days, collected the proof, and now you see it. Not because I want to hurt you, but because I want you to be free from the deception before it ruins everything you've worked for, everything you've built. He sank back into the couch, silent for a long moment. I sat beside him, giving him space, letting him process, knowing that sometimes words weren't enough. The quiet between us was heavy, but not empty. It was filled with grief, shock, and the weight of betrayal. Finally, he looked at me, eyes burning with emotion. Mama, what do we do now? I took his hands in mine, squeezing gently. We handle it smart, baby. We confront the truth, carefully, not in anger, but with clarity. Denise needs to know that her games are over, and you need to see that loyalty, honesty, and love are not negotiable. We're going to make sure she cannot hide anymore. His jaw tightened. I can't believe she would do this while I was away, while I trusted her completely. It's her choice, Marcus, not yours. And now you have the power to choose how to respond. But first, we make sure the truth is undeniable. I pulled out the last piece of evidence, an audio clip I had managed to record discreetly, capturing her laughter, her whispers, the unmistakable intimacy with the other man. Marcus listened, and the color drained from his face. His hands clenched into fists, knuckles white. I knew he was reeling from the betrayal, from the realization that the woman he loved had been leading a double life, one calculated and hidden with skill. He looked up at me, voice low and trembling. Mama, she's evil. How could she do this? Some people, baby, are born to deceive. But you have the choice to rise above it, to respond with intelligence, not just emotion. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We sat together in silence for a few moments, letting the truth settle, letting the poison of betrayal sink deep enough to awaken the reality of the situation. Marcus' hands were shaking, but his eyes, though filled with hurt, were beginning to harden with resolve. Then he whispered something that made my heart ache and swell at the same time. Mama, thank you for seeing it, for protecting me, for showing me before it was too late. I brushed my hand over his hair, my voice steady but filled with love. Always, baby, I'll always protect you, even from the ones you love the most. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you deepest, and you have to be ready to face that truth. And baby, that was the turning point. The betrayal had been revealed, the poison poured like ice over our hearts. But now the first seeds of action, of judgment, and of reclaiming power were planted. Marcus' anger was real, his hurt visceral, but beneath it, a spark of determination was beginning to burn. We spent the evening going through every piece of evidence, every interaction, every secret she had tried to hide. Marcus' grief was deep, but so was his resolve. And as night fell over Atlanta, I knew the reckoning was coming. The woman who had dared to betray my son, to break trust and loyalty, would face the consequences she had earned. Because, baby, when the truth drops like cold poison, there's no hiding, no pretending, no second chances. And Denise, she had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. We ended that night not in relief, not in comfort, but in preparation. The final moves were coming, and we would be ready. The morning sun spilled through the blinds, painting long stripes across the hardwood floor. But there was no warmth in my heart that day. I felt cold, calculated, and ready. Marcus had spent the night poring over every piece of evidence, replaying the audio, rereading the notes. He was no longer the naive, trusting man who had flown back from Chicago. That boy had seen betrayal with his own eyes, and under my watch, he was ready to act. We arrived at Denise's office together. I could see the tension ripple through Marcus' shoulders, but his jaw was tight, his eyes sharp. And baby, let me tell you, I had never felt more proud and simultaneously terrified. Proud that my boy had learned to face the truth, and terrified of the storm that was about to hit that polished, perfect woman who had dared deceive him. The guard recognized me immediately. "Morning, ma'am. Mr. Marcus is here too?" "Yes," I said simply. "We need to see her." The elevator ride was silent. Marcus gripped the railing, knuckles white, as if holding himself in check. I placed a steady hand on his arm, whispering softly, "Remember, baby, this isn't about anger. It's about truth. The truth will do the work for us." When the doors opened, Denise was already there, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floors. She looked impeccable, serene, untouchable, but the confidence in her eyes faltered when she saw us together. That microsecond of doubt, baby, it was all the proof we needed that she knew the reckoning had arrived. "Loretta, Marcus," she said, voice calm but edged with suspicion. "What's the meaning of this visit?" Marcus stepped forward first, voice steady, controlled. "The meaning, Denise, is simple. You've been living a lie. You've betrayed trust. You've deceived me while I was away, believing in you completely." Her smile was quick, defensive, professional. "Marcus, you're mistaken." "I know," I interrupted, voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "She isn't mistaken. She's been playing you, and I have proof." I held up the phone with every note, photo, and recording we had gathered. Every secret she tried to hide, every intimate act with someone else, it's all here. For the first time, Denise's composure cracked. Her lips pressed into a thin line, eyes flicking between Marcus and me. The mask she wore so carefully for years was beginning to crumble. "Marcus, Mama, I can explain," she said, voice strained, almost pleading. Marcus shook his head slowly. "Explain? There's nothing to explain. The truth speaks for itself." His tone was firm, unyielding, and I could see the hurt in his eyes mingled with growing resolve. I stepped closer, voice calm but authoritative. "Denise, you have built a life, a career, an image of respectability, but beneath it, you've chosen deceit. You betrayed my son, and today, the judgment begins not just from him, but from me as well. You will answer for your choices." Her hands twitched slightly at her sides. "You can't just know, Denise," Marcus said, voice rising but controlled. "You can't just manipulate reality and expect it to be ignored. I trusted you. I loved you. But the person I loved, the person I thought you were, doesn't exist." I could see her pulse quicken, the tightness in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands. She was cornered, not by rage, not by yelling, but by the undeniable weight of truth, by the steady, calm force of a mother and son who had seen through the deception. "I have nothing else to say," she finally whispered, defeated. I understand." Marcus exhaled sharply, tension leaving his body slowly. "You will leave my life," he said, "completely. No more lies, No more games. And you will never hurt me or my family again. I placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the solidity of his resolve. Baby, remember, truth and integrity are more powerful than any lie. She cannot take that from you. She cannot touch what's rightfully yours. Denise's eyes glistened with unshed tears. It wasn't remorse entirely, there was a mix of shock, fear, and perhaps the faintest recognition that she had lost. For the first time, baby, she saw that her carefully constructed world, her control over perception and people, had ended. Marcus turned to me, voice soft now, filled with gratitude. Mama, thank you for everything, for seeing, for guiding, for standing by me. I smiled, the weight on my shoulders lightening slightly. Always, baby, I will always protect you, even when it means facing the hardest truths. The office felt still, almost sacred, as if the air itself had shifted. Denise's reign of deception was over. Marcus had reclaimed his life, and I had ensured the truth was unassailable. Judgment had been served not with anger or vengeance, but with clarity, love, and unwavering resolve. As we left the building, the sun felt warmer, the streets alive with possibility. Marcus walked a little taller, chest higher, the burden of betrayal slowly lifting from his shoulders. I walked beside him, proud and quietly triumphant. But baby, let me tell you this, the scars of betrayal linger. Denise would always be a reminder of deceit. But Marcus now knew the power of truth and the strength of a mother who refuses to let lies go unchecked. That day, judgment began, and though the world continued spinning outside those office walls, inside, a lesson had been etched in hearts and minds alike. Trust wisely, see clearly, and never let anyone's deception stand unchallenged. The weeks after Denise's confrontation passed slowly, but they were anything but quiet. Marcus and I had spent every day untangling the mess. She left behind returning calls from worried colleagues, clarifying misunderstandings, and ensuring that her web of deceit would no longer touch our lives. It was exhausting, emotionally draining, but necessary. Every moment reminded me why I had never ignored the whispers in my heart, why I had followed the uneasy feeling that something was off. Marcus had grown stronger through it all. I watched him carefully, proud but still aching for the boy who had loved so blindly. He now carried himself with the confidence that comes from facing betrayal and surviving it. But even with that strength, baby, I could see the faint shadows, moments when a sigh came too heavy, or his eyes lingered on an empty chair where trust had once sat. That's the thing about scars. They never fully vanish. They just teach you to walk differently. We spent an evening on the porch, watching the Atlanta skyline dim into night. Marcus sipped his tea, shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks. Mama, he said, voice soft, I can't believe how far she tried to pull the wool over my eyes. I feel so many things all at once. I know, baby, I said, letting my hand rest on his. It hurts because you trusted deeply. It hurts because love can blind you, but it also teaches you to see clearly. And the thing is, the people who deserve your love, your loyalty, they will never make you doubt yourself like that. He nodded slowly, a thoughtful frown creasing his forehead. I guess the hardest part is knowing she smiled at me while lying, that she acted like nothing was wrong, and all the while, she was playing a game with someone else. I know, baby, that's the cruelest part of deceit, I said, voice calm but firm. But remember this, she chose that path. We didn't. And we get to decide how we walk away. We get to choose truth over manipulation, honesty over betrayal. That's the lesson here. Marcus exhaled, letting a shiver of relief run through him. I feel lighter, Mama, but I also feel different, like I can't trust the same way anymore. That's natural, I said gently. Trust is fragile. It bends, it breaks, it rebuilds. But it rebuilds stronger when you know who you are and what you deserve. And baby, you deserve loyalty, honesty, and love that doesn't hide behind lies. We sat together in silence for a while, letting the city's lights flicker across our porch, thinking about what had happened and what lay ahead. I could feel Marcus' anger slowly morphing into resolution, his grief turning into clarity. And for the first time in days, I felt a sense of calm settle in my chest. Not relief entirely, but something closer, recognition that justice, in some form, had been served. But life doesn't always close neatly, does it, baby? Denise was gone from our daily lives, but the memory of her betrayal lingered like a shadow, a reminder that people can hurt you when you least expect it. The scars remained, and they always would, whispering warnings whenever trust came too easily. And that's a lesson I had to pass on to Marcus, gently but firmly. The world is full of smiles that hide intentions, and you must always keep your eyes open. I looked at him and whispered softly, "You survived this. Marcus, you faced the truth. You saw the betrayal, and you chose to rise above it. That's strength, baby, and that's what they can't take from you." He smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude, exhaustion, and determination in his eyes. "Thank you, Mama. I don't think I could have done any of this without you." I placed my hand over his, squeezing gently. "Always, baby, always. That's what a mother does, protects, guides, and sometimes shows you how to stand tall when the world tries to knock you down." As night fell completely over Atlanta, I knew the story wasn't over, not entirely. Life would keep moving, people would keep testing boundaries, and betrayal might still creep in from unexpected corners. But we had faced the worst, we had survived, and Marcus had learned the power of truth. And baby, that's all a mother can hope for, to arm her child with courage, clarity, and the wisdom to never let deceit go unchallenged again. So, here we were, sitting together on that porch, the city glowing softly beneath us. The world outside continued on, oblivious to the battles we had faced inside those walls. But inside, Marcus was whole again in a way that mattered. He had witnessed the truth, confronted it, and begun to rebuild himself with the scars intact but the strength undeniable. And as I whispered one final thought into the night, a thought I hoped would stay with him forever, I said, "Baby, remember, always trust your heart, but never ignore the eyes that see. And when the truth calls, answer it boldly, even when it burns." The lesson was complete, the story resolved, and yet the scars would linger, a reminder of what had been endured and what had been learned.